We often talk about hard times like there's something to get through, as if survival is just about making it to the other side. But surviving isn't just enduring. It's not just about holding our breath and waiting for the storm to pass. It's about discovering who we are when everything we rely on gets stripped away. The truth is, we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we're tested, when we're forced to ask hard questions, when we're pushed to the edge and still choose not to give up. And at the core of all of this, the center of every moment when we face something difficult, is one question: why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why does it matter that you keep going? When people are in crisis, the question that rises to the surface isn't what should I do, or even how do I fix this? It's why should I care enough to fight through it? That's the question that burns at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come. It's the question that echoes when the job is lost, when the relationship falls apart, when the diagnosis arrives, when the bank account hits zero. And it's not a small question. It's the question. Because in the absence of a strong why, we will settle for any distraction that gives us temporary comfort. But temporary comfort can't carry us through permanent challenges. What carries us is conviction. What carries us is meaning. And meaning only comes when we connect what we're doing to something bigger than ourselves. Think of the most resilient people you've ever met. They aren't just gritting their teeth through hard times. They're holding on to something, a belief, a mission, a cause, a future they refuse to give up on. That's their why. And it doesn't have to be loud or grand. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the promise a father makes to his child. It's the vision a founder has for a company that doesn't exist yet. It's the commitment to be better than yesterday. Those things matter. They're fuel. And it works the same way for teams, for communities, for businesses. When people are united around a shared why, they can weather almost anything. You see it in organizations that rally through downturns. You see it in nurses pulling 16-hour shifts in overcrowded hospitals because they believe in care. You see it in activists who keep showing up to march even when the progress is slow. The conditions aren't ideal, but the cause is undeniable. That's what moves people forward. Without a why, struggle feels like suffering. With a why, struggle becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice means we're giving something for something. That shift in mindset changes everything. Suddenly, pain isn't just pain. It's purpose in disguise. Discomfort isn't a curse, it's a classroom. That doesn't mean the process isn't hard. It's incredibly hard. But it also becomes meaningful because when we know why we're fighting, the fight becomes bearable. And it's okay if you don't have the full picture of your why right now. You don't need a perfectly crafted mission statement. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need to know what matters enough to not quit. That's it. That's the start. You find your why not by escaping struggle, but by moving through it with your eyes open. You find it when you stop trying to run and start trying to listen to yourself, to what the moment is asking of you, to what the future needs from you. And when you find it, everything else starts to make more sense. The decisions get clearer, the sacrifices get sharper, you learn what you're willing to tolerate and what you're absolutely not. That kind of clarity doesn't come from reading a book or watching a video. It comes from living in the tension of uncertainty and choosing not to numb out. It comes from sitting in the discomfort long enough to understand what it's trying to teach you, because pain always has a message. Sometimes it's telling you something needs to change. Sometimes it's showing you what you value most. Sometimes it's reminding you that you still care. And that's powerful. If you still care, it means there's something in you worth fighting for. So here's the question: what's worth fighting for? Not just in a general sense, but for you. Right now, in this season, what's the thing that's bigger than the pressure you're under? What's the thing that deserves your energy, even when you have none left to give? The answer might be messy, it might be complicated, it might even scare you. That's good, because the truth is, we don't survive tough times by pretending everything is fine. We survive by getting real about what's at stake and choosing to show up for it anyway. We survive when we stop focusing on how hard it is and start focusing on why it matters. And in doing so, we unlock a strength we didn't know we had. Not because the pain disappears, but because we've attached the pain to purpose. And when pain has purpose, it becomes powerful. It becomes the reason we rise. When things fall apart, our instinct is to react. We scramble, we reach for quick answers. We try to regain control. Panic, after all, is a very natural response. It's how our brain tries to protect us. But here's the thing, it's a short-term strategy. Panic might get your body moving, but it doesn't tell you where to go. It's all motion, no direction. And in tough times, motion without meaning is dangerous. It exhausts you, it distracts you. It convinces you that busy equals progress, when really, you're just running in circles. The most dangerous thing we can do when the world around us is uncertain is to become uncertain about ourselves. That's why when everything feels like it's slipping out of our hands, we need to reach for something deeper than a quick fix. We need to find our center. We need to anchor in purpose. Purpose doesn't panic. Purpose is still. Purpose listens. It speaks in a calm voice when everything else is screaming. It doesn't rush us to the next thing. It reminds us of the right thing. Because in every crisis, there's noise and then there's signal. Panic is noise. Purpose is signal. Now, anchoring in purpose doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending that we're not scared or overwhelmed or confused. It means allowing those feelings to exist without letting them drive. When you lead with purpose, whether that's as a person, a parent, a partner, or a leader, you accept the fear, but you don't hand it the keys. Think of the people you admire during crisis, not the loudest ones, but the ones who create a sense of calm in the chaos. They're not necessarily the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who know what they stand for. They speak clearly. They act with integrity. They make decisions not out of fear, but out of alignment with something greater than themselves. That's what makes them trustworthy. That's what makes them followable. Because people don't follow panic. They follow clarity. They follow conviction. When you anchor yourself in purpose, you become that source of clarity, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And that creates strength that multiplies. Let's be real, anchoring in purpose is harder than reacting in panic. Panic is easy, it's instant. It gives you the illusion of doing something. But purpose requires you to pause. It asks you to remember who you are and what matters most, especially when it would be easier to forget. It's easy to stay true to your values when everything is going your way. But who are you when it's not? Who are you when the plan breaks, when the market crashes, when the phone call comes? That's when the real test shows up. And the ones who come through it strongest are the ones who stay rooted in purpose, not tossed around by pressure. And this isn't just theory, it's personal. You've seen it in your own life. You've had moments when you were overwhelmed, when it felt like everything was slipping, but something inside you reminded you why you started. Something reminded you what you're fighting for. That's purpose. It doesn't shout, but it speaks with strength. Purpose creates focus. It keeps you from chasing 10 different solutions when really you need one good direction. It reminds you that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every storm is meant to drown you. Some are meant to teach you how to stand. And when you're clear on your purpose, you make different choices. You stop needing validation for every step you take because you're not moving for applause, you're moving from alignment. You trust your gut more. You show up with more consistency. You stop reacting to every piece of bad news like it's the end of the story because your purpose tells you it's just a chapter. It's like a compass. You don't always know the terrain. You don't always have the full map, but you have a true north. That's what keeps you going when the fog rolls in. That's what helps you say no to distractions and yes to what really matters. And in a world that changes fast, clarity is a superpower. This is especially important in leadership. When a leader panics, the whole team feels it. But when a leader anchors in purpose, the team finds its footing. People will forgive your mistakes, but they won't follow your fear. They'll follow your heart. They'll follow your belief. And if they can see that your actions are grounded in something bigger than yourself, they'll stick with you even when the road is rough. So how do we actually anchor in purpose when everything is uncertain? We ask better questions. Instead of asking, how do I fix this as fast as possible? We ask, what does this moment require of me based on who I want to be? Instead of asking, how do I make the fear go away? We ask, how can I act in a way that aligns with what I value, even if I'm afraid? You don't need all the answers. You just need the right questions. Questions that bring you back to your why. Questions that remind you this isn't just about surviving the moment. It's about becoming the kind of person, the kind of leader, the kind of human you can be proud of later. That's the quiet power of purpose. It doesn't eliminate the storm, it gives you something to hold on to while it rages. And eventually it helps you walk out of that storm with your head high and your heart intact. Because panic is temporary, but purpose is timeless. Panic fades, purpose remains. And when the dust settles, what you'll remember won't be how scared you were. It'll be how you stayed grounded, how you stayed centered, how you chose to keep moving forward, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. That's what it means to anchor in purpose. Every single one of us has stood at the edge of something uncomfortable. It might have been a conversation we didn't want to have, a risk we weren't sure we could afford, or a change we didn't feel ready for. And in that moment, we were offered a choice. Do I stay where it's safe, or do I move forward into something unknown? That moment is where courage is born. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't always roar. In fact, most of the time, courage is quiet. It's the decision to get out of bed when everything in your body says don't. It's showing up when you're not sure if you belong. It's doing the hard thing not because you're fearless, but because it matters more than your fear. And that's what separates people who grow through adversity from people who get stuck in it. It's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's not even luck. It's the willingness to be uncomfortable on purpose. Because comfort feels good now, but it rarely gets you where you want to go. Courage, on the other hand, almost never feels good in the moment, but it shapes who you become. We've created a culture that glorifies the end result but forgets the process. We admire the ones who made it through, but we skip over the nights they doubted themselves. We don't talk enough about the fear behind their decisions, the uncertainty, the emotional weight they carried, but if we did, we'd understand this. The ones who made it through didn't feel ready either. They weren't fearless. They just moved forward anyway. That's what courage is. It's forward motion in the presence of fear. It's action despite doubt. It's saying yes when everything in you is screaming, play it safe. Because there's something on the other side of fear that can't be accessed from the sidelines. There's growth, there's confidence, there's depth. But none of that comes from staying comfortable. In fact, comfort can become a trap. We start to confuse it with peace. But they're not the same. Peace comes from alignment when your actions match your values, when your life reflects who you really are. Comfort just comes from familiarity, from staying where it's warm and predictable. But growth is never predictable. It asks you to stretch. It demands more of you than you thought you had. And the reason we resist that is simple. Discomfort feels like danger. Our brain is wired to protect us, to keep us from pain, to tell us this feels hard, maybe you're doing something wrong. But that's a lie. Sometimes hard is exactly where you're supposed to be. It's the resistance that builds strength. You can't train a muscle by leaving it alone. You have to apply pressure. You have to tear it in tiny ways to rebuild it stronger. The same is true with character, with leadership, with resilience. If you want to become someone capable of thriving through tough times, you have to make peace with discomfort. You have to welcome it, not because you enjoy the pain, but because you understand its purpose. That's not a one-time decision, it's daily. Courage is a practice. You choose it when you have the chance to avoid conflict, but you speak up anyway. You choose it when you could stay small, but you decide to be seen. You choose it when the easy way is available, but you go the meaningful way instead. And you do it not because it's fun, but because you care about the outcome. Because you know that the kind of life, the kind of impact, the kind of legacy you want can't be built on comfort alone. Think about the people in your life who've had the biggest impact on you. Were they always the smartest, the most successful? Probably not. But I bet they were honest. I bet they were brave. I bet they showed up when it wasn't convenient. That's courage. That's what we remember about people. Not how easy they made things look, but how real they were, how committed they were, how willing they were to keep going when it got hard. That same thing is available to you right now. You don't need a grand moment to prove it. Courage isn't waiting for the spotlight. It's already in the small decisions you're making every day. To stay open when you've been hurt, to believe in yourself after a setback, to take one more step when the road feels impossible. And yes, it will be uncomfortable, but that's the point, Because every time you choose courage over comfort, you're training something in yourself. You're reinforcing a belief that you can handle more than you think, that fear doesn't have the final word, that even when it hurts, you're still capable of growth. So many people wait for the fear to go away before they act. But fear doesn't go away, it evolves, it shifts. What changes is your relationship with it. You stop treating it like an enemy and start seeing it as a signal, a sign that you're stepping into something that matters. Because here's the truth, nothing meaningful happens without discomfort. You can't build connection without the risk of vulnerability. You can't chase a dream without the possibility of failure. You can't lead with integrity without the fear of rejection. So you have to decide what's more important, staying safe or staying aligned with who you really are. The world doesn't need more people who play it safe. The world needs more people who are willing to be scared and still show up. People who are willing to say, I'm not comfortable right now, but I'm here, I'm in, let's go. That's the kind of strength tough times call for. Not perfection, not invincibility, just a willingness to choose courage over and over again until discomfort becomes part of your process, until fear stops being a wall and starts being a door. And when you look back later, you realize that the moments you were most afraid were also the moments you were most alive, the moments you were becoming. Not in spite of the discomfort, but because of it. When life gets hard, our instinct is to close in, to protect ourselves, to shrink the circle, to tune out the noise and hold on to what feels safe. But the truth is, isolation may feel secure, yet it rarely serves us. What we need most in tough times isn't distance from people, it's depth with the right people. Not everyone, not the loudest, not the most agreeable. We need the people who care enough to tell us the truth. The people who challenge us, not to win an argument, but to help us grow. The ones who see who we are beneath the fear, beneath the pride, beneath the performance. The people who remind us of our values when we're tempted to betray them just to survive the moment. These people are rare. That's what makes them essential. We like to think we can go it alone. That strength is self-contained. That the best leaders, the most resilient people are self-made. But that's a myth. Nobody makes it alone. Not really. The strongest people are not the ones who know everything. They're the ones who invite feedback, who ask for help, who are willing to be held accountable even when it stings. Especially when it stings. Because truth isn't always comfortable. And when we're in pain, we naturally want comfort. We want reassurance. We want someone to say, you're fine, everything's fine. But comfort without honesty is just a soft kind of sabotage. It soothes us in the short term, but leaves us blind in the long term. And in moments of crisis, blindness is dangerous. That's why truth tellers matter so much. They don't just offer information, they offer insight. They don't flatter your ego, they protect your future. And you know who they are because when they speak, even if it's hard to hear, something in you knows it's right. Something in you feels seen, called up, not just called out. And here's the beautiful irony. Truth tellers aren't the ones who make us feel small. They're the ones who help us rise because they remind us that we're more than the mess we're in. They hold up a mirror and say, you're better than this. You've got more in you than this. That's not criticism. That's love in its most powerful form. But it only works if we're willing to receive it. There's a kind of maturity that comes when you stop needing to be the smartest person in the room and start craving the realest one. Someone who challenges your blind spots. Someone who questions your justifications. Someone who asks, are you being honest with yourself right now? And if we're humble enough, we'll recognize those questions as a gift, not a threat. Because the goal in tough times isn't to be right, it's to be real. It's to stay grounded. And we can't stay grounded without people who keep us tethered to the truth. The mistake many people make when things get hard is that they surround themselves with echo chambers. They seek agreement instead of alignment. Agreement feels good. Alignment feels true. Agreement is surface level. Alignment is soul level. And alignment requires hard conversation, the kind that ask more of us. The kind that call for reflection, course correction, and yes, courage. We need people in our lives who don't just make us feel better, but who make us better. People who have permission to speak into our blind spots, who don't shy away from telling us the things we don't want to hear but desperately need to. These are not critics, these are allies. The difference is their intention. Critics want to tear down. Truth tellers want to build up. They may use sharp words, but they're wielded with care. And if you don't have those people, the invitation is simple. Go find them. But first, become one yourself. Be the kind of person others can trust with their vulnerability. Be the kind of person who listens more than they judge, who speaks with both honesty and empathy. Because when you become that kind of person, you start attracting those kinds of people. It starts with you. This is especially critical in leadership. If you're a leader of a team, a business, a family, you have to actively create space for truth. People won't bring it to you by default. You have to invite it. You have to reward it. Because if your people are afraid to tell you the truth, then they're not really with you. They're just near you. And in a storm, proximity without trust is fragile. Great leaders don't just tolerate dissent. They seek it. They ask for input. They create environments where people can disagree without fear. Because they know that challenge doesn't weaken a vision, it strengthens it. A fragile idea can't survive feedback, but a worthy one, it gets sharper with scrutiny, better with pressure. And all of this requires something rare, emotional safety. The kind of safety that says we can be honest with each other even when it's hard because we believe in the same outcome. That's not soft. That's not weakness. That's where real resilience is forged. The best relationships, personal and professional, are built on that kind of truth. The kind that says, I care too much to let you stay small. I respect you too much to let you lie to yourself. I trust you enough to be real with you. That's love. That's loyalty. That's leadership. So, if you're walking through something hard right now, ask yourself, who's speaking into my life? And even more importantly, who has permission to speak into my life? Who have I invited to challenge me, to guide me, to hold me accountable to the best version of myself? And if the answer is no one, don't be ashamed. Get intentional. Go find those voices. Build those relationships. Because in tough times, the truth is not the enemy, it's the way forward. And the people who bring us that truth, those rare, courageous souls, we don't just need them, we become stronger because of them. Most people wait until things fall apart before they start thinking about strength. They wait for the crisis, the diagnosis, the failure, the loss, and only then do they start wondering how to cope, how to get through, how to rebuild. But that's not how strength works. Strength isn't something you download when things get bad. It's something you build brick by brick, day by day, when no one is watching, when everything feels normal, when it's easy to assume you won't need it, until one day you do. And on that day, when the storm hits, you'll be glad you trained for it. Not just physically, not just strategically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's what I mean by inner strength. The kind of strength that doesn't shout but sustains, that doesn't show up in your posture but in your decisions, that doesn't announce itself but carries you when everything else falls away. Inner strength doesn't come from pretending you're okay. It comes from knowing you can be okay even when you're not. It's not about being unaffected by pain. It's about staying rooted in the middle of it, knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you won't compromise on. It's that invisible foundation beneath your feet that reminds you, I've done hard things before. I'll do this too. But here's the part we don't like to admit. Inner strength doesn't happen by accident. It's not a switch you flip. It's a discipline, a daily investment, not flashy, not fast, but consistent, quiet, intentional. It's in the thoughts you choose, the conversations you have with yourself, the way you respond when things don't go your way. It's in the rituals you practice when no one's around to applaud you. Because the truth is, most people only train the outer life, the visible stuff, the resume, the appearance, the performance. And then life hits them with something their external strength can't carry, and they collapse. Not because they're weak, but because they never built the strength that matters most. The strength to keep going when certainty disappears. The strength to stay true to your values when shortcuts look tempting. The strength to still believe in yourself when the world starts doubting you. That kind of strength is built in small moments. Waking up and choosing gratitude before your brain hands you a list of complaints. Putting your phone down and sitting with your thoughts instead of avoiding them. Choosing to listen when you want to defend. apologizing even when your ego says you're right. That's training. That's investment. That's how you build resilience, one deliberate choice at a time. And make no mistake, this is work. It's emotional labor, it's uncomfortable, it requires you to look inward and ask, what am I carrying that I haven't dealt with? What stories am I telling myself that aren't true anymore? It asks you to be honest, not performative, not polished, but honest. Because strength and honesty are always connected. You can't build the first without practicing the second. It also requires rest. Let's not confuse burnout with bravery. Inner strength is not about grinding yourself into the ground and calling it resilience. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause, when to speak and when to reflect, when to fight and when to heal. It's not all action. It's also awareness. The most self-aware people you know aren't soft. They're strong, because they know themselves well enough to lead themselves wisely. And that's what this is about. Self-leadership, the ability to guide yourself before expecting to guide anyone else. The ability to stay composed, not because everything is easy, but because you've trained your nervous system, your mind, and your values to work together, not against each other, when pressure comes. The people who show up strongest in tough times aren't always the ones with the best tools or the most experience. They're the ones who've done the inner work, the ones who've practiced sitting with discomfort instead of running from it, the ones who faced their own insecurities before life threw them into chaos. They're not fearless, but they're rooted, and roots are stronger than waves. We often admire people who seem unshaken by chaos, but what we're really seeing isn't perfection, it's preparation. It's the result of choices we never saw them make. The times they stayed up journaling through fear instead of numbing it. The days they chose discipline over distraction. The moments they paused and breathed instead of reacting. That's the training. That's how inner strength is built. And the best part? You don't have to wait for a disaster to start building yours. You can start now, today. And it doesn't take hours of your time. It takes intention. It takes 5 minutes in the morning to center yourself before you face the world. It takes one conscious breath before sending that angry email. It takes asking yourself, what does the best version of me look like in this moment? And then acting like it matters. Because it does matter. You're not just building strength for yourself. You're building it for the people who count on you. For the moments when your steadiness will help calm someone else's storm. For the day when your voice will be the one someone else needs to hear. Not because it's the loudest, but because it comes from someone who's done the work. And the beautiful irony is that the stronger you become inside, the less you'll need to prove it outside. You'll stop chasing validation. You'll stop performing resilience and start living it. You'll stop trying to control everything around you because you've finally learned to lead what's within you. That's what makes you dangerous in the best way possible. Not because you're invulnerable, but because you're unshakable in the ways that matter. Not because life won't hit you, but because you've built something inside that can take the hit and keep moving forward. So don't wait for the breakdown to begin the building. Start now. Invest daily. Not for the applause, not for the optics, but because there's a version of you that can thrive in any season. And you get to build that version every single day, not by force, not by fear, but by choice.